Blessed to be with you this morning on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. The state of our lands. What's the latest now that President Trump is in the presidency? Are we going to have more freedom here in the West? Joining us now, Jennifer Fielder from the Americans Lands Council. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning.
So what is the update on the state of lands in Western America?
Well, that's a pretty big question, Kevin, but glad to talk about it a little bit.
Sure.
As you know, our federal lands are still being pretty badly mismanaged. It doesn't really seem to matter which administration is in office because the bureaucracy is just so huge and behemoth. There's just a lot of system failures in the system itself. President Trump's been trying to get some things moving. He signed an executive order to speed up and expedite logging and firefighting and that type of thing. But we know that if and when the administration changes, which it will because we have term limits, so at the very least it will change in 2024. We'll start to see a change one way or another. We need permanent solutions for the long haul. So we're really grateful that President Trump and his administration are doing what they can to improve conditions, but we're very aware that we could be right back in the same boat we were or even worse under a different administration. So we're working really hard to educate people about the importance of shifting control of the federal lands to the state and local governments so that we can actually make decisions on the ground with local knowledge that make a lot more sense.
Right, and yet we still have this issue involving the state or the feds owning so much of Idaho and other states. What are you working on in particular, Jennifer? And I know you're working. It's just that we have these issues come up, and like you said, it doesn't matter which administration it's in; it continues to impact us. What's the plan to give states like Idaho some relief?
Right. Well, the biggest thing that we are working on at the American Lands Council is to get a piece of federal legislation passed that would allow each state the ability to apply for specific pieces of land as they're ready and willing to manage new areas responsibly. So the key to this is states can go at their own pace. They wouldn't have to take control of all the land all at once, but they could put in through the state legislature, put in an application to the Secretary of Agriculture or the Secretary of Interior, depending on which type of land it is that they're seeking to acquire. And then they could acquire those pieces on a schedule. So the state could say, this year we want X piece and next year we want Y piece, and et cetera. The state can develop its own schedule of which lands it wants to take over and to go at their own pace. And that federal bill would also require that any existing valid rights and uses of the land would have to be preserved. So, for example, grazing rights, mineral rights, water rights, any of those types of things would have to be preserved by the state. And we'd also build in some safeguards to ensure that there wasn't any sudden price changes, fluctuations in grazing fees or anything like that. We're working to get a 20-year period of time where the grazing renewals can be done basically under the same terms and give the industry a chance to work with their state legislatures in developing whatever type of a system that they want to come up with in their state that works for both the land managers and the land users. And of course, once the land is transferred to the state, then this federal legislation requires that if the state application says that the land will be acquired for public land use, then the state would be required to keep it public. So that's been one of the most major concerns we've heard from people, is that the state would sell off all the land. And we really don't believe that's the case. There's not a lot of appetite to sell off mountaintops in the West. But
I don't know about that. We have a lot of people like the Wilkes brothers. I'm sure you're familiar with them. They've bought a lot of land here in Idaho, and in addition to that, they've closed off access to the public. So I think that would be a concern. I think the big issue that we have here, Jennifer, and I'm sure in other places, certainly in California, everybody impacted by the fires, the fires every summer, it seems.
Yeah. So, taking care of the fires is a big deal, but, think about local management of fires is a lot quicker. It's on the ground quicker, and local people know how to fight the conditions in these mountains and valleys and things like that. Whereas when federal land management or firefighting teams come in, They tend to bring in commanders from out of the area that don't necessarily aren't familiar with the landscape, don't know the mountain air currents and things like that. And we've seen a lot of fires get way out of control once the federal government takes over because they're so slow in developing a methodology for attacking those fires. And sometimes they just let it burn. Oftentimes they do. And we've seen multi-million-dollar disasters take off because of the way the federal government goes about handling these fires versus like in Montana, where I'm from, our state fire crews, they're very good at initial attack, and they've got a really successful track record of getting the fires out when they're less than 10 acres in size. And, we manage in Montana 70% of the land in our state. It's a very large state, and about 30% of it is under federal jurisdiction. And where you see the federal government have jurisdiction on the fires, you see these mega fire disasters that cost multi-million dollars and go on for weeks and weeks and fill our skies with smoke for a large chunk of the summer. But when something starts on state or private land and it's under the jurisdiction of the state, we get after it. We get it done. When it's high fire season, we don't let it burn. There's a time and a place for prescribed burning, and when it's high fire season, that's not it.
Jennifer Fielder joining us from the American Lands Council. Anything else you'd like to share with us today, ma'am?
Yeah, I'd love to go back to the thing about privatization, because that's a really big concern of a lot of folks, and that's why we've built into this piece of federal legislation that if the state application says that they're going to acquire this land and it's going to be public land, then they're required to keep it that way. So that's an important factor for folks to realize, that the decisions will be made at the state level, and it's going to be a very transparent process of stating what the actual purpose for the transfer is up front before the state even gets a hold of it. So it's a really important element of this effort to give the local people and the people within the state the decision-making power on how the management priorities are going to work for these lands and that type of thing, rather than having those debates in Washington, D.C., where you've got representatives from everywhere but Idaho. You've got a few from Idaho, but not too many. And same with Montana and the other western states. We just don't have very many voices in Congress. So the whole goal is to bring these management decisions home where they belong, where local people can really have an influence over the priorities for our landscape and what trails and roads are open and which ones are closed, which areas are designated as wilderness, which ones aren't, and all those types of things. And what we're seeing in Canada is they went through this devolution process where they've devolved control of all the federal land in Canada to the provinces and the territorial governments, and they're getting far better results because they've localized their decision making.
Jennifer, if people want more information, what can they do?
Please go to the AmericanLandsCouncil.org website. That's American Lands with a S, Council, COUNCIL. .org, and look us up, join us. There's plenty of information there. We'd love to have folks join us and help us out. We're a membership-driven organization. There's no great big industries behind us, no dark money, anything like that. We're just a bunch of folks that really care about our public lands and want to make sure that they get managed better, and we understand that there's a better path forward to ensure greater accessibility and healthier conditions and sustainable economic solutions. So please check us out and join us.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'd love to have you back.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. All right, let's go to Ron Paul Jim, who's been very patient with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Ron Paul Jim.
Good morning, Kevin. Just to add to that comment she made, I believe that all the states west of the Mississippi are under federal jurisdiction of their land, while east the states control it anyway. So we're the only ones that are subject to the federal regulations. So I like that idea. About the furloughed employees, the rest of us in the private sector have this uncertainty of our paycheck day to day, week to week. We never know when we're going to get laid off or fired or anything. And it's about time that federal employees are not insulated from the pressures of the economics and whatnot that the government does to us. And so, the only unique thing about this is this is like a paid vacation. Although they don't have their money right now, they're all going to get their money back pay, and they didn't do anything. In the private sector, we all, if we don't work, we don't get paid. So I have no sympathy for the federal employees. I honestly think that it's demonstrating how little we need them, and the non-essential definition, if that includes the TSA, well, that just shows you how ineffective the TSA or unimportant the TSA actually is. So I don't care. Let the government stay shut down as much as possible. And, I want to see that wall. I want to see border funding, so no sympathy from me.
I hear what you're saying, but, I mean, really, is it fair that people are working for free?
They don't have to. And not only that, the rest of us, like I said, if you look online, people are saying, wow, the airport actually functions now. There's not a line, that kind of thing. So I don't think the airlines themselves are willing to risk their own plane from getting blown up or something, so they're doing their due diligence to, check out. And I'm sure that there's probably plenty of, if somebody comes up on when they purchase a ticket, to be on a no-fly list or something like that, they catch it. So, I don't think it should be, just like the public lands, it should be the private sector policing itself in most of these regards. And I just don't see feeling sorry for them when, everybody else, when the economy, when the Federal Reserve or something raises interest rates and it ends up, sidelining a whole bunch of employees from their jobs because there's no work. Why should the federal government be insulated from the economic ups and downs that they create? And this,
well, what would you say? What would
deal.
you say to the people that are working for free right now? What would you say to them?
Say, go get a private sector job. If it's that bad, the way it is, the federal government employees get on average twice the salary of what the private sector gets. And then they get this really cozy retirement that nobody has in the private sector. So, I just, wish Congress would live and abide by the laws they pass on the rest of us and not have carved out exemptions for themselves and these, fantastic retirements. To me, they're not doing a public service when you're getting paid twice the average salary of the private sector. That's robbery. They're parasites, in my opinion, every one of them.
Ron Paul, Jim, thank you.
Yep.
All right, good to have you back. Liberal Steve joins us. By the way, you can join the conversation at 580-5436. 580-KIDO, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller in the morning. Talking about the shutdown, it continues. The president saying, look, let's make a deal. The Democrats saying, we don't like the people working for the government. They can suffer, and we'll blame the president. Good morning, sir.
I see a new senator in California. I think her name was Harris. Senator Harris threw her hat in the ring for 2020 presidential race about an hour ago. Boy, we're going to have a lot of females competing against each other. And how can you sit there and blame it on the Democrats when the president sat in his little chair with a big smile on his face and say, I'll shut it down and I'll take credit for it. I'll accept it. It's me who shut it down, and it's me who can turn it back on. He doesn't have to meet with anybody. He can turn that back on. And shame on your last caller. These are our people that sit beside us in church. These are our neighbors next door to us, across the street, down the road, that have these government jobs, the TSA and all the other ones, the IRS, that are suffering. It's a proven fact that 80% of Americans, whether they're federal or work private employer, die broke. 80%. 40% today are living week to week. Oh, who cares about them? Trump sure don't, because he could stop it in a second.
Now, the president over the weekend made a comment, made a public statement, and before she even heard what the president said, Nancy Pelosi rejected it. So the Senate will take this up. They will pass it. They'll take it to the House. Why not listen to what the president says? He hasn't backed down. But what have the Democrats done besides go to Hawaii and go to Puerto Rico and go home and goof off?
You ask a question, then you talk your way through it. Can I answer it? He can shut it down, and he can open it up in a second. He doesn't need the $5 million for the wall. He can open it up, and then they can sit down and negotiate after he opens it up. He closed it. He can open it. You know, you just hold his hand through everything. You and him are skipping down the road in your little sidewalk tutus. You and Trump. Golly, I can't wait until that dude is out of office and we got a real American in there.
Like who? Bernie Sanders?
Anybody but Trump. Oh, that should be the campaign. Anybody but Trump.
See, this is where you're
There we
mistaken.
go.
Look at the economy. Look at the people coming back to work.
$8
Look at the
jobs.
stock market. Look at everything that's going on.
$8 an hour jobs have jumped up in the stock market. The stock market.
People
always
are
goes higher
working.
than-
Times are good under this administration. Donald
What do you
Trump
mean people are
has saved America.
People don't have any careers out there, and he hasn't saved it. You know who saved America? Amazon, Google, the big guys. Look, we're shutting down Shopko retail stores. How many in Napa and Boise?
Sure.
And two of them in Boise. One.
Are you going to blame him for shutting down Sears, too?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. How much? Yeah. And then Ford
We might as well
going
just
away,
call you Steve
GMC's going
Pelosi.
away,
We might as well just call you
GMC's
Steve
going
Pelosi.
away, and Harley Davidson's even going away. I mean, come on.
Harley
And then
needs
the
to
air
love
conditioning
Harley
people are
needs
going
to
away.
Harley needs to love America like the president. Donald Trump saved America and continues to
Yeah.
save America.
Save America. America never needed to be saved.
Oh, after that 8 years of Obama, we needed help. And look, you could have the super blood wolf moon and all you want, but the bottom line here is Donald Trump has saved America. And we are with him, and we are supporting him, and we love him, and we will take care of him. And he is the best thing ever.
Pence on Face the Nation or whatever he was at Face the Nation. Pence was on, and he looked like such a robot on Sunday. My God,
That was
He couldn't
Fox.
even
That
answer
was
the
that was
question.
Fox News Sunday.
He couldn't even answer the question, and then he said, "We've defeated ISIS. We've defeated ISIS," and then he tried to explain his way out of that, and Trump tries to explain his way out of that. And Putin told Trump, "Pull your American soldiers out of Syria," and Trump just jumps to whatever Putin
Well, wait a
says.
minute. Well, based on what? Based on Putin telling you? Are you talking to Putin? Are you colluding with the Russians? How do you know these things? You don't know them. You're making this up.
Making what up?
Exactly. Thank you for the call.
Yeah, right. The book is going to be a good one.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Back to this issue, though, involving the government shutdown. You had Ron Paul Jim saying he doesn't feel bad for the federal workers. Liberal Steve saying he blames the president. Are you missing the government? Let's talk about it next. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. And Kevin Miller in the morning. Coming up, it's all about immigration. It's all about the shutdown. Over the weekend, Jake Tapper, CNN's Man of the World, the State of the Union, had a chance to grill the latest Democrat to jump into the sea of presidential aspirations. No, not the young lady from Hawaii who should be a Republican. No, not Kamala Harris, another senator from New York, Kristen Gillibrand. And here's what he had to say, and he used some pretty good logic, like being the devil's advocate. So if Trump's a racist, does that make you a racist? Let's take a listen.
Okay. But let me ask you, if Trump's immigration positions are racist, were they racist when you held some of those positions as well?
They certainly weren't empathetic, and they were not kind, and I did not think about suffering in other people's lives. And one thing I did 10 years ago when I became senator and was going to represent 20 million people across our state, I recognized that a lot of places in my state were different, and I needed to understand what those constituents needed too.
Right. So if Trump's a bad guy, weren't you a bad guy? Oh, no. My views have evolved. By the way, you're going to see a lot of people and their views evolving when it comes to LGBTQ, when it comes to progressive items, when it comes to immigration. Now, here's the deal. We are such a sympathetic people. We would love to feed everybody, right? We'd love to have Golden Corral for everyone, but we can't do that. We can't physically afford to feed everybody. So why are we doing the same thing when it comes to American citizenship?
And so I took the time. I went down to Brooklyn. I met with Nydia Velasquez, who's been a leader in fighting for families for a long time. And I listened. And I realized that things I had said were wrong. I was not caring about others. I was not fighting for other people's kids.
Right. I was not caring for others. I was not fighting for other people's kids with taxpayer money. And what about the angel moms, right? I love Sean Hannity and how he is bringing this issue to the forefront. We have our friends on from FAIR all the time. They fly us out holding our feet to the fire. And we talk to folks there again and again and again. Where are the people that have lost loved ones? Why doesn't the press care about them? Why do the Democrats not care about them? We'll talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
And after Glenn, there's Dave, noon to 3 right here on KIDO Talk Radio. You're home in the Treasure Valley for Fox News on the radio at 107.5 FM, 580 AM, exclusively now to Capitol Hill. Rachel Sutherland joins us now. Now, Rachel, I know there was a fire at the Fox Bureau yesterday. Chris Wallace was telling everybody about that. That's where you are. Are you there or are you at a secure remote location?
No, everything's cleared out. I actually worked yesterday. I was doing a different shift than I normally do. And so when I came in, I knew that there had been a situation. I came in and was able to get into the building, and it was just smoky by the time I made it in. But yeah, I mean, there was a whole lot of buzz about how everybody had to just drop everything and go over to WTTG, which is about 3 or 4 miles across town, which doesn't sound like much, but in D.C. traffic, you would need a motorcade to get there in any amount of time. That wouldn't make any sense. Apparently, they made it and were able to use those studios, which we were grateful for. But yeah, I mean, it's all cleared out now. You'd never know anything happened. I think it was up on, we're on the 5th floor. I think it was up on the 8th floor in the NBC studios that they suffered the most damage.
Right. That's what folks don't know is you're directly across from Capitol Hill, literally, at NBC, and I don't know if C-SPAN's in there as well. But
yes.
Yeah, it's like
C-SPAN's here too.
Yeah, it's a media central. So nothing like working in the smoke yesterday on a Sunday. So
that was all right. I mean, some areas of the building were better than others until they can get it cleaned out. So I mean, I was perfectly safe. It's just one of those weird things that happen. A lot of times we'll have fire drills around here. We've gotten so used to it, everybody just kind of mills around until we're forced out. This one was real. So, but anyway, no one hurt. That's the main thing.
Yeah, and thankfully for that. Now let's talk a little bit about the government shutdown over the weekend. The president, everybody says he vacations, but he hasn't left the White House. He's up, and if you follow his tweets, he's tweeting all weekend. He's giving speeches. Did he move the ball any by this speech on Saturday?
I think the ball is moved simply because there's a proposal on the table. Now, Democrats still don't want a deal. They say they want to open the government first and then negotiate. But the president did offer a proposal that would give temporary protections, 3 years of protections to immigrants who are brought here illegally as children. They're known as Dreamers or DACA recipients. And so this would give them an additional 3 years. In addition, the president wants to exchange $5.7 billion for border security, including a wall. He's calling it a steel structure. So, but Democrats are saying no. They're dismissing it, saying that they're not getting a permanent fix for the so-called Dreamers, yet the president is getting his money for a permanent wall. So they are not even wanting to come to the table. Now, this is day 31 of the shutdown. Tomorrow, we may see that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell brings the president's proposal to the Senate floor, but they would need to swing over Democrats in order for it to pass upwards of 7, and I just don't know. That sounds like a tough climb.
Indeed. It does sound like a tough climb. What about the House, though? Any movement there at all? Or Nancy's just going to...
No, not at all. I mean, no one's really in session today. And the House, no. As far as I know, what the House has done, Democrats have done in the House, is pass separate bills to reopen the government. But over in the Senate, Mitch McConnell says he won't even bring them to the floor because the president won't sign them. So there has been movement in the House with passing some legislation, but it's going nowhere. As far as the Democrats coming up with their own proposal, that hasn't happened yet. They seem to be completely dug in on not building this wall.
I mean, I don't know if there's a timeout or anything else. I guess we've had a timeout. Finally, the frustration of federal workers. Your thoughts?
Well, it's really tough here in the Washington area, and it's all over the country, but here in the Washington area, our metro system says it's losing $400,000 a day because of the people who are not usually, they're usually commuting. We're understanding also that if you're furloughed, you can file for unemployment, and you'll have to pay it back in most states. If you're essential and working, for whatever reason, the law is you can't file for unemployment, so you have people who then still need to pay their commuting costs, their lunches, their child care. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser actually asked for the Labor Department to do something about that, but she got a rejection on that. So this is going to become a desperate situation for a lot of people, and we're hearing that more and more of these TSA agents are calling out sick because they can't afford the commute.
Amazing. Rachel, thank you very much. Appreciate the update, ma'am.
Thanks, Kevin.
And let's continue on. Thanks to our news partners at Channel 7. Remember, when you hear Channel 7 on the radio in the Treasure Valley, you're listening to their exclusive home for news right here on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. That's why you hear Maggie and Doug and Larry Gebert and everything else. This is a story they did concerning local TSA workers and the impact the shutdown has had on them.
It's of all personal effects.
For nearly a month, they come to work every day for no pay.
The officers have to show up. We have to be there.
Staying on the job.
We're here to protect and serve.
To protect the flying public.
And you get up and you go to work because you believe in what you do. We are doing our jobs, so there's no fear.
Like AFGE local TSA Vice President Rebecca Wolf.
I started right after 9/11.
Who has to provide for 7 people in her household.
I rent, I single income.
She's getting antsy and says so were most others.
Never did I think that we would be this far into a shutdown where I'm struggling and trying to figure out what we're going to do. I'm not going to lie, I've cried a little bit here and there.
TSA officers are called to work, while non-essential employees are furloughed, not working and not getting paid.
We have families. You have child care. You have to have gas to get back and forth to work.
Or they have to pay their landlords.
It's frustrating. It's scary. It's scary to think of having to be homeless because you can't pay your bills. I know that people have talked about selling their vehicles, pawning their items.
Wolf says TSA officers suffer from low morale and are some of the lowest paid in the federal government. Most live paycheck to paycheck. They'll get paid when the shutdown's finally resolved. But in the meantime, some are taking on another job.
You would hope that being the leaders of the country, they would act grown up. I mean, we took an oath, they took an oath, but we're the ones suffering because they can't get it together. It hurts my heart. It really does. Because this is not the America that I grew up to know and love.
Yet she's staying optimistic.
You have to hold on to the hope.
Hopeful this will all be over soon.
And there we have it from Channel 7. And, we have the overly dramatic voices. We have the idea that this is, horrible, and it is. Look, the what we're hearing from the press is that this is to blame for Donald Trump. Okay, Donald Trump wants a wall, right? Donald Trump was the bigger man over the weekend and said, look, I'm ready to negotiate. Nancy Pelosi, that gets cover from the press, she rejected the deal before he even said it, right? So at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, both sides are to blame for people not getting a paycheck. Now, earlier we had Ron Paul Jim ripping the feds and everything else, and you've got the media portraying the workers as victims. How many of you know what it's like not to have a paycheck? How many of us can remember the fear of economic uncertainty dependent on a paycheck, waiting to see if it deposited in our bank account? You know what I'm talking about. The reason why the president doesn't want to open up the government, again, if you're going to work at the Boise airport, you don't care about that. And that's not a knock on you. You just want to get paid for your work. Because if the president opens up the government, there'll be no wall. Just like when Nancy Pelosi said, we're going to work together. Is this the example of working together? Is this what Americans voted for? Nancy Pelosi being the Queen Cersei Pelosi? That's really what this is. She's going to show everyone. She wants to destroy Trump from his base. The president is standing firm, but you have real-life Americans that are getting hurt. And yeah, it's great to say that we don't miss 20% of the government. Well, as soon as the lines start backing up in the airport, as soon as everything else happens, we're going to start feeling the pain. And you have the press promoting the pain. And you have people doing stuff for the furloughed workers. I get it. Or the workers that are working without money. I get it. But if we get rid of left and right, which we do on this program, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, this whole battle reminds me of Gettysburg. You know what the Battle of Gettysburg, the bloodiest the bloodiest battle on our continental United States, you know what that was about? That was about a shoe factory. They were fighting over shoes, and it was just a contingent of the Confederates, a contingent of the Unions, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, before you know it, both sides were at an impasse. And it comes down to this, and maybe you have experienced this in your own life, in your own career. You can't be against everything. You have to be for something. We are for you. We are for Idaho. We are for the Treasure Valley. And people going to work and not getting paid and getting thrown out of their homes, that's crazy. That's utterly unacceptable. And the fact that we have Nancy Pelosi pulling the strings on this, look, she just got elected Speaker of the House. She doesn't care. Say what you want about President Trump, who we wholly support, and we urge him to come to Idaho. Well, he'll get the best ever reception. Say what you want about President Trump. He had the gall, he had the guts on a Saturday afternoon to give a speech saying, okay, I'm willing to negotiate on DACA. Okay, I'm willing to negotiate on this. I'd like my wall. I'd like to keep America safe. And what do the Democrats do? They just shut the place down.
When you don't have an FDA, it's hard to get certain medicines. When DEA isn't functioning, opioid relief is more difficult. There are so many different ramifications to the shutdown. And that's why we have 3 words to the president: open the government.
And here's a word to you, Chuck. Do your job. Do your job. The Senate will have a proposal. The House says no. We want open borders. We don't care about the angel families.
800,000 federal workers have been held hostage. They're being used as pawns. If I don't get my way, I'm not going to pay these folks. That's a very bad, cruel thing to do.
Right. Look in the mirror, Chuck. Joe in Nampa with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Joe.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How's it going, sir?
Fighting a cold, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. Not bad. Couldn't complain. Hey, I just want to talk real quick about the shutdown. You know, I listen to your show every morning, all the time. Love it. On the way to work. And, you know, this is something that you take a chance when you get employed by the federal government, is that there's a chance that you're going to have a job tomorrow, not just because of the shutdown, because of budgeting or anything else that happens. But there's one thing I don't notice is I don't see anybody talking about the soldiers that are out there working without pay. It's all about these TSA workers and other employees, but nothing about them. I'm kind of curious why nobody's talking about them.
Well, I think the military does get paid.
Well, last time when I was in, we had the last shutdown. I didn't get paid.
Right, but I think they do get paid on this one. Believe me, Joe, first of all, thank you for your service.
Oh, yes, sir.
You know, for being away from home, for, you know, loving your country, putting your country ahead of yourself. You know, we say that all the time, but really we thank you for your actions, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I bet you there's one thing, too, because if I was still in service, which, you know, I'm not anymore, I'm out now, I'm a nice, happy civilian, but I wouldn't complain about the shutdown. I'd keep working without pay. I'd agree with what he was doing. I mean, this country comes first. That's it. End of story. And it comes before me. It comes before you. It comes before everybody. Because without this country, we don't have the things that we do get to have as citizens of this country. And I just think it's BS. And that's what I got.
Well, Joe, we appreciate you. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You have a great day.
You too. You know, I appreciate Joe's service, but if the military were not getting paid, obviously we'd be hearing about this, number one. And number two, I'm with Joe. My country, right or wrong. Again, I wish these guys would get paid so we could take away one of the talking points. And like I said, no one should be working for free. We do enough of that in radio. And really, radio's not work. You just sit there and yap, and hopefully somebody listens. Like Liberty Linda on 107.5 FM, 580 AM KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberty Linda.
Good morning, Kevin. Doesn't Steve Pelosi, doesn't he read a newspaper? Doesn't he listen to a radio or watch television? How can he not know what good shape our country is in since our wonderful Donald Trump became president? How can he not know?
Well, he's a denier of the truth.
Yeah, I can't believe what he says sometimes. Even though we still love him, we can't believe what he says sometimes.
Well, you speak for yourself when you say you love him.
Okay, I'll just say that then. Anyway, it's reported everywhere, though. Except for in the liberal news, of course. They don't report what's going on good in our country. But anyway, did you see the Patriot game last night?
I did, yes.
Wow, Tom Brady's done it again. I was so excited. It was such a wonderful game. I was just jumping up and down in my seat. It was just wonderful.
You're a Patriots fan now, huh?
I am, yeah.
Well, you know what they say, we're all Patriots.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. Anyway, it was a great game, kind of like your show. The Kevin Miller Show is great as well. We love listening to you. But nothing seems to make any sense anymore with the liberals in Congress or what they are doing. We're really proud of our Russ Fulcher. I don't know if you heard what he said. I think you played it on your show.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, we're proud of him and what he's doing there. And anyway, I don't like seeing our government shut down. However, we had company from California this last weekend, and we hear what's going on in California, and it's not pretty what's going on there. And so, we used to take a person 7 years to become a citizen of the United States, and they went through a long process, a lot of paperwork. To come here and to be a citizen, they had to be checked out thoroughly. And I think we need to get back to that. When it comes to our country, we have to watch out for our own country. So, Kevin, I would like us to see us get back to that. And we need the wall. We have to have the wall to protect our own country, to protect the people that are here now. We all can hear what's going on in our country. And, let's use common sense when it comes to our president. He is doing a great job. We hear it everywhere. And thank you for your show. Thank you for reporting all of the wonderful things that are going out there and letting us know about some of the things we need to fight against.
Well, we're here. We're not going to let them take our country away.
That's what's so wonderful about tuning in every morning. On all your callers seems to be so wise and know what's going on, and I love hearing from every single one of them. They're great people that call in, and so anyway, thank you, Kevin, for being there for us.
Well, we love you, Liberty Linda. Take care.
We love you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You're listening to Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you, Sean Hannity. Don't forget Lars Larson. Immediately following Sean Hannity, let me try that again. This cold is just whooping on me. Immediately following Sean Hannity, weeknight 6 to 9 on KIDO Talk Radio. Traffic and weather together. Good morning, Dave.
I'm just Channel 7's Eric Everett.
And I'm Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, we'll talk to our friend Lars Larson. We'll take your calls on the issues that matter to you, none more important than the government shutdown, the battle for the wall, and why aren't the Democrats getting the blame? Whether it's the national or state or local media, it's always one-sided. It's always one-sided. You know, earlier today we were talking about the Women's March, and the Women's March with Jennifer Palmieri coming in, who worked for Hillary Clinton, and talking about the opportunities for women. Could you imagine if we just said that about men? You know, Dr. King was always talking about equality. Where is the equality in our time today? We'll address that coming up. So happy. Really appreciate you joining us today and every day. Kevin Miller on your home for Fox News on the radio in the Treasure Valley. 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.